So if you're one of those golfers that after getting your tee shot away, you really struggle with your ball striking with your irons, this video is for you. So I'm going to show you how we're going to get you hitting ball and then ground to give you that solid strike, good distance. But most importantly, if like in the UK now, the ground's very soft, you're just confident that you're not going to hit the ground first or miss the ground and top or thin the golf ball. Now, if you're watching this video, that's probably you. You've got all the bad ones in there and occasionally a good one happens. So what I like to talk about with most golfers is when we're hitting those bad ones. So we're stood up over the golf ball, we make that swing, and we hit way behind the golf ball. And we can see the strike would be really high up the club face, and the ball would go nowhere. And in the UK at the moment, it probably wouldn't even go that far. But we could see the contact there way up on the club face, and we could see on the TrackMan numbers that the low point of the golf swing was 0.3 inches behind the ball. Now, what does low point mean? So the low point is as the club travels up, club travels down, reaches the lowest part of the golf swing, and then continues up. But for a lot of golfers, they think that the golf ball is the lowest part of the swing. And the challenge for a lot of golfers is when they stand over the ball, particularly with the ball on the ground, not so bad with the tee, they have this idea that they need to try and get underneath the golf ball. Now, in a very simplistic form, the low point of your golf swing should be opposite that lead shoulder. So you can see, as I address the golf ball, it should be pretty easy to get that ahead. But because most golfers are trying to lift the ball, they hit way behind. You can see 3.3 inches behind, and again 60 yards carry with an 8-iron. Now, what I forgot to mention is use a bit of loft with this to begin with, get the feel, and then you can work up through the bag. But if I said to a lot of golfers, they're trying to get under the golf ball, so they're trying to create this at impact. So almost they're trying to add loft to the golf club, where all the best ball strikers in the world actually de-loft the club. So I want you to think about that. I'm going to set up to the golf ball, and if I was de-lofting the golf club, what would I need to do? Well, I'd need to move my weight further forward and allow those hands to move more ahead of the golf ball. So I would want you to rehearse that. So from there, feel more this way at impact, and then make a swing and try and feel that you do that. And it's very noticeable there that I suddenly touch the ground ahead of the golf ball. So we do that again. And again, very easy to touch the ground ahead. Now obviously I'm in a nice fortunate position. I've got TrackMan and I get some great data. So what I would say is if you're on the driving range, particularly if there's TrackMan range or Top Tracer, look at the launch angle. So we want your launch angle, let's say down around 20 degrees with your 8-iron. But if you're adding loft, even if you were to strike one well, we're going to be up at 25, 26, maybe more than that. And even though the strike was good, we could see middle of the club face, low point behind, and 123 yards. But we've just rehearsed what we wanted, haven't we? We're going to lean left and de-loft the golf club. I would then have you hit a few shots just a little slower than normal. And even taking my speed out there, we can see a solid strike, low point 3.7 inches ahead, clubs travelled down 5 degrees, launched at 14 degrees, but suddenly carried at 137 and rolled out nearly 155. And yet that felt no speed whatsoever, but I really focused on moving correctly to touch the ground after the golf ball and to de-loft the golf club. So it sounds an odd one, but I'm not trying to make the golf ball do anything particular. I'm trying to focus on making a good move and seeing what the result is. So not right out the middle of the golf club, but again, low point much further ahead at 5.5 inches. Clubs travelled down nearly 7 degrees, 14 degree launch, 126 and 142. And once you can start getting that feel slower, you're already probably hitting the ball further than you would normally, but then we can start putting a little bit of speed back in. And we see a little bit more club head speed, a little bit more ball speed, still keeping low point ahead, still controlling that launch angle, and starting to hit the ball gradually further and further. And it's such a strange concept for golfers about feeling like they're delofting the golf club. And when I do videos about this particular topic, a lot of golfers say, well, why would you try and de-loft your 8-iron? Why wouldn't you just hit a 7-iron? It's what de-lofting the golf club helps create. It gets that pressure shift into that lead side. It gets the handle leaning forward to control the low point of the swing so you hit ball and then turf, but also helps you kind of release the club a little bit later rather than releasing early to catch the ground. So even though the common sense thing says if I'm hitting it too high, take less loft, learn how to control the loft of the golf club. And then as you gradually build more and more speed back in, we start to see quicker club head speed, low point still ahead, and more distance. And it's such a skill that golfers struggle with. So many golfers come to see me, and occasionally the low point's ahead. But very often the low point can range with amateur golfers, anything from maybe a couple of inches ahead to maybe 5 inches behind. Whereas tour players, certainly with mid-irons, they're looking at probably 4 to 6 inches ahead consistently. So not only is it further ahead, but the variable is smaller. So instead of having maybe a 7-inch change, there's only maybe 1 to 2 inches change for them. Now, comment below. I know that's an obvious statement that a tour player will be more consistent, but it's also that thing that even good ball strikers that are maybe a higher handicapper who don't score well do this much better. So get yourself set up, rehearse where you want to feel, and then you can set up, put that swing on it. And even the one you don't strike as well as you could is still low point ahead, decent distance, and very, very playable. And I do think from a confidence perspective, if you stand up there and you know you're going to hit ball and then ground with irons, hybrids, and fairway woods, it's a very different feeling than a lot of golfers who stand up there and, like I said at the start, they could hit the good one. They could top it, they could thin it, they could fat it. But all of the bad ones are all from being back here with your low point and not being ahead of the golf ball. So we want you just maybe a couple of seconds for each shot, rehearse where you want to feel, then put that swing on it. And once you build that speed back in, not only are you going to strike the ball better than ever, but you're going to start hitting it more accurately and further than ever with every club in the bag.